Hello YouTubers! I am back with a comic review. It took me a long time to get to July's comic review because I did have a lot of issues to go through, but the month was really busy without being busy at all, in a way. It was kind of weird. But anyways, we have a bunch of issues to get through, so let's start. First off, a single issue of Void Rivals, number 20 to be exact. This one has a few different things going on. The main storyline focuses on Derek and Salila. If you remember, the last issue kind of ended when Derek's dad, the minister of Agoria or whatever, was explaining to him why unity is bad, the sacred text, blah, blah, blah. So Derek was coming around to his father's way of thinking after being so convinced, along with Salila, that unity had to happen. And at that point, Salila, with her newfound powers that Zerda Tryon gave her, appears out of nowhere through the floor with her transformational abilities, and at that point, that's where the issue ended, with Derek's father going, "Derek, destroy her," or whatever. And so we pick up there in this issue, and Derek is like, "No, I can't do that." And his father is like, "What? Okay, guards, then you do it." So then a big fight erupts. She handles the guards, no problem. She's like, "They will live, but listen to me here. We need unity." And then she's like, "Derek, like, why have you suddenly not? Why do you no longer believe in unity? Like, what happened?" And he's like, "Well, my dad showed me these sacred texts and what they portended about unity and how it's bad and it's going to be the end of us." So the fight continues to go on, and eventually Derek and her start fighting, and they don't really want to harm each other, but they're kind of locked in this situation with one believing one thing, one believing the other, so they can't really find a way out of that, you know? So in the meantime, they sick even more guards on her, but she uses her transformational powers to take all of them down, and in the end, after she takes care of all the guards, they start really talking about it, and she's like, "Sacred texts that have been passed down for generations, that means nothing." She said, like, "I talked to Zerda Tryon herself. She told me unity is the way for us to save our planet and to come together and defeat what's the big bad guy's name that's locked up in the black hole inside the ring? I forget his name. Goliath, I think it is his name. So, or no, is that one of the Turtles ones? No, I think it's this one. So many stories from so many different brands. I love it. So then in the meantime, that's the main thing that happens with Derek and Salila. But there's a couple of other things going on. You remember the Skuxoids? We learned that when Skuxoid died in the last issue, there's actually lots of Skuxoids, and when he dies, pieces of him break off and regrow. So there's all these Skuxoids, and the two that we saw were taken to the planet where Skuxoid Alpha, or whatever his name is ruling over all the Skuxoids. So we see them taken to processing, and then we see this robot kind of looking over them medically and goes, "Oh, that scar didn't heal. That's weird." So there's something going on with the replicating Skuxoids. We just don't quite know what yet. And in the end, we see one of the two that were recently sent to this planet taken away for processing. Usually processing means, you know, disposing of. And then the other thing that was going on, this was just a one-page panel. Sorry, there's two more things going on. One of them was just a one-page panel, and it focused on the member from the G.I. Joe franchise, that Cobra Law girl that had the weird armor that was mutating, but then she lost it in the battle. So she's on Junkion with Rekgar and all the Junkions, and she's like, "You propose I make new armor out of all this machinery?" And she's like, "That's not, no." But she's like, "But," right? Because these people from Cobra Law are all like natural, organic, and I think they look upon machines as like the low, you know. And she's like, "I can't possibly wear mechanical armor," but she may be in a situation where she has no choice but to do that. And then the other thing going on, there was there's been a guy missing for a while. He was the minister of the Zertonians, I believe. Zalalak, his name is. And he went and was hanging out with like these weird priestly type people with these masks and robes, and he was learning their ways and stuff like that. And he comes out of a trance where he was conversing with Zerta Trion directly, and has been told that unity is the way to go. So he comes out of this trance and is like, I know what I have to do now. So they put armor and stuff on him, and he's like, let's do this. And that's how the issue ends. So there's obviously some different, I don't know what's going to go on with the G.I. Joe girl, the Cobra Law girl. I don't know what's going on with Skuxoid, but obviously there's different parties between the Agorians and the Zertonians, where these are all going to come together in a certain way. And I don't know, there's obviously going to be a fight for unity and against unity, and it seems like the most powerful people are for unity, but do the numbers are the numbers against unity, right? So, you know, how's this all going to break down? How's it all going to go? So I can't wait to see. I remember last time I was predicting, I think we might have like 2 more issues. I think it'll only go 20 issues. It seems like it's wrapping up, but it just seems to keep going, and they keep fleshing out different avenues of this story and the characters in it. So I'm not sure what to expect and how long this series is going to go, but either way, it's been very interesting. Lots of twists and turns, and I can't wait to see where issue 21 goes in August. Next up, the Turtles. As usual, we got 4 issues, kind of across the board. The first one, issue 26 of the Saturday Morning Adventures series. This one's a continuation from the last one. If you remember, what the fuck's her name? I forget. Lotus Blossom had betrayed the Turtles in their lair, gassed them because Hob had blackmailed her by threatening her students at her dojo in order to steal the Turtles' portal that they have to other dimensions. So as this one picks up, she had just finished gassing the Turtles, but Master Splinter walks in. He'd come home early from his fishing trip because it was terrible weather, or the fish weren't biting or something, and he sees what has happened. Lotus Blossom standing there. They immediately get into a confrontation, but Master Splinter understands that something may have pushed her to this. So as the Turtles finally wake up and Splinter has this battle with her, they talk while they're fighting, and they sort things out, and he's like, oh, okay. So when the Turtles wake up, they're kind of pissed at her, but Splinter's like, just hear her out, guys. Like, she did this because she was put in an awkward position by Hob, who was working for Krang and whatever. So they decide to come up with a plan where Donatello is going to rig up a portal to backfire on Krang. So they're like, yep, organize the drop. It's all good. So they're driving to the pickup, the exchange location for Lotus Blossom. But on the way, they run into Toka and Razor, who have been terrorizing Manhattan. The police almost had them in custody or whatever, but they break free. They steal the cop car. So as they are driving the portal to the pickup point, they collide with Toka and Razor in this cop car and have this brief skirmish with them, and before they trap them in a net and take care of that threat. And then they give Lotus Blossom the portal to take the last leg of the journey. She meets up with Hob. They make the exchange. He takes the portal. So back in the lair, after Hob and Krang are rigging up the portal, they set it to go to work, but it backfires on them and blows up, nearly kills Hob and Krang. And then Krang is like, well, on the worst part of this, breeze, I'm not going to be able to hear the end of Shredder's complaining. But then you hear Shredder go like, no complaining, Krang, it worked, I'm back. So Shredder's back in his corporeal form in the here and now. So even though the portal blew up and almost killed Krang and Hob, it actually brought Shredder back from Dimension X in his ghostly form or whatever it was. So he's back on the scene. So I'm sure in the next issue, we're going to see some hijinks from Shredder himself. Shredhead. Next up, issues 6 and 7 of Mutant Nation. Now, each of these issues divided up into 2 separate stories. Let me see if I can remember them in the right order. The first one's pretty funny. Bebop and Rocksteady are using some tech to hide their mutant forms, and they have gone to Las Vegas to watch a boxing match between two guys, one of which they are big fans of, and they're like, oh, this guy's gonna mop the floor with his competition. When the fight begins, though, it goes exactly the opposite way. Bebop and Rocksteady are pissed. They run to the ring saying, this is a scam, this is a sham, something bad happened here today. And meanwhile, all the people watching the fight at shows like Casey Jones, Mona Lisa, Sally Pride, all watching the fight and just hearing from the TV, like all these boos come out, you know? So everybody's watching this unfold. Now, as Bebop and Rocksteady get to the ring, people start throwing energy drinks in and whatever, and this short circuits their tech. All of a sudden, Bebop and Rocksteady are standing in the middle of the ring as these huge mutants. So then they get chased out of town. So they're running for their lives from this angry mob of people that are pissed about the match themselves, but now are pissed at Bebop and Rocksteady being mutants in the middle of all this. So they're running around Vegas trying to escape, and their best escape vessel, a couple of F1 cars lined up at the race that's going on. So each of them climbs into one of these cars and escapes. The cops are chasing them, whatever. And after they finally shake the cops, they come upon this limo that has the name of the energy drink all over it, which is one of the boxers, I think. And it's the two boxers inside, like celebrating their big payday on the match that they threw. So Bebop and Rocksteady catch up to them and are like, oh no, and they punch the shit out of the boxers. And the last thing we see as they're racing away in their F1 cars is this limo exploding. So I don't know if they killed these guys or whatever, but they got their vengeance for what these guys did. And then we see them run out of gas in the F1 cars just as they reach the Vegas city limit line. The other story focuses on Lita, who recently got mutated back to her child form. She has been taken to Northampton to live with, I believe it's April's parents. And she's having a hard time adjusting. She's on her own with April's parents. Everybody's back in New York. She feels abandoned. Nobody's really come to visit her in a long time. And she knows stuff is going on back there that she maybe can't be a part of, but so much of the dojo life and the Turtles training and everything was about being family, but now she's been abandoned, sort of thing. So she's having a hard time adjusting to this, and she's always taking off on April's mom, and she's going out and rebelling a bit, and she's having a real hard time. And one day, she finally sees a mutant. It's this tall goose guy walking downtown, and she's like, oh, a mutant. So she's all excited. She ends up talking to him, and he's got a t-shirt on from, I forget her name, Jenica's girlfriend, the pig mutant who's in the band. I forget her name. So he's got a band shirt of them on, and Lita's like, oh my God, you like them? Like, I know them. I used to go to their shows all the time. And he's like, yeah, they were great, blah, blah, blah. So she kind of falls in with this guy, and it makes her rethink things, and she starts to adjust a bit better. And then, after she's been gone for a while, April's mom comes bursting along and is like, Lita, where did you go? Like, you can't just run off like that. And so Lita has kind of made her peace, and she apologizes and promises April's mom that she won't do it again, and they go off and get something to eat. And so everything kind of, she's writing all these letters to everybody and kind of working through her feelings, and that's kind of where it ends off, and more of a happy place for poor little Lita. The second issue, number 7, the first story, Bludgeon, the mutant shark, calls Natsu and Koya back to Manhattan because he's got a problem, and they're like, okay, what's the problem? He's like, yeah, watch and see. The Foot Patrol are everywhere in the city, and they're giving everybody a hassle, a hard time. And as they're talking on the boardwalk together, these three people, 2 mutants and then Natsu, the Foot Patrol amble along. It's like, move it along. People don't like mutants loitering. So Natsu does everything she can to, like, or is it Koya that wants to murder them? I can't remember, but it takes everything within them to just move along and not start a big brawl. So they go get some noodles at this shop, and as they're eating their noodles and they're talking about this Foot Patrol problem, a couple of Foot Patrol soldiers come in and shake down the owner of the restaurant for more money, and a skirmish ensues. They take these Foot Patrol soldiers out and are like, fuck this shit. So they end up going to learning that it's not the mayor that's having all these foot patrol people do all this, it's District Attorney Hale, who's a real prick. So they confront him, and he's like, all these soldiers would die for me. Like, don't even try it. Like this is what's happening. Fuck yourselves if you don't like it, sort of thing. So then they end up getting in a big fight with the foot patrol, and can't seem to make a foothold against these guys. So Bludgeon ends up telling Koya and Natsu to take off, like they're just gonna get caught. So get out of here, do what you can. And Bludgeon ends up being subdued by all these foot patrol soldiers and is taken captive by D.A. Hale. And so Natsu and Koya go back to Karai's. This is where Bebop and Rocksteady have been guarding the entrance to Karai's throne room or whatever, because she's off doing on a magical adventure and nobody's allowed in. So Natsu and Koya are like, but there's shit going down. Like, the Foot Patrol is not hers anymore. They're not doing what the Foot Clan would want. They're under Hale's direction, and things are going sideways. But Bebop and Rocksteady are like, sorry, her orders. So, but Karai's in a bit more trouble than they think. So Natsu and Koya kind of sign off the issue, being like, we don't know where Karai is, what she's up to, but we're going to find her and we're going to correct this. And that's how that part of the story ends. And then the second story in this issue, there's a police officer who's a mutant moose, and he is called to this bar or club or whatever to deal with a problem. The problem is there's a mutant inside sitting at the bar. He's a beetle, and he won't leave. All the humans want him to leave. It's caused a big kerfuffle. So Officer Monty goes in and sits down. He's like, and tries to talk to the guy, and the guy's a little obstinate at first, but he finally sees that Monty wants to help him, also being a mutant, whatever. And things are going well, but then all of a sudden a bunch of Foot Patrol soldiers burst in and escalate the situation, and a big fight ensues. So in the end, after the Beetle guy kind of takes down all the Foot Patrol soldiers at the time, and Monty kind of follows along. Monty's like, okay, we're gonna get you the help you need, but I just need to take you in. And the Beetle's like, you're arresting me? He's like, just taking you into custody so we can protect you and sort this out. So then that pisses the Beetle off. So then all sorts of hell breaks loose. There's another big fight with the Foot Patrol, and before Monty's eyes, they put all these arrows into this Beetle guy and kill him. And then they're like, mutant on mutant violence. Oh, we don't like that. So they're setting Monty up to take the fall. But at that point, the police show up and are like, what's going on here? And so Monty's captain, a female, I don't know her name, is like, she believes that the Foot Patrol set him up and whatever. So Monty was expecting the worst, of course, the Foot Patrol and then the humans. But the captain is like, see you tomorrow. Make sure your shoes are shined, right? So he gets off and isn't involved in the death of this beetle that the Foot Patrol perpetrated. But of course, they don't suffer any consequences. They're the assholes, and Hale's got them footloose and fancy free and getting off scot-free, if you know what I mean, right? So unsure if that storyline will go back to and continue to be fleshed out. It seems to be all these random kind of things with some consistent things in the main storyline moving along, but all these kind of mini stories going on, and I'm not sure if they're all going to come to a head in the end and whatever, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to continue buying these comics, which I will. Last up, issue 9 of the regular ongoing Turtles series. As it starts off, Michelangelo is raiding the Foot Patrol precinct headquarters because Donatello was taken captive by the Foot Patrol at the end of the last issue, or actually he gave himself up willingly, and Michelangelo wants to get him back. So it shows him going through the Foot Patrol precinct, kicking ass, taking people down, and he meets up with Raphael along the way, who's thinking to do the same thing. And Mikey's like, where's Leonardo? And Raph's like, I don't know. Like, what a bitch, didn't come and help us out, right? But Mikey and Raph are still kind of at odds, and they're like, don't get in my way. So they continue to fight through this, but they realize it's a setup. Donatello is not at this location, and they've just wasted all this time and effort and barely escape, and go back to Leonardo and are like, where the fuck were you, man? And Leonardo's like, he wasn't there, was he? Like, why would I waste my time? Like, Splinter told me. And remember, Donatello had the dead rat that he was pretending was Master Splinter and that he was talking to him? Now Leonardo's following that and is falling under that kind of spell, I guess. So then eventually they kind of go their separate ways, and Michelangelo especially, he goes to the subway and he falls asleep on the subway. He's thinking, and he kind of thinks back to his TV show when he was the superstar hero of this TV show, and he got into all these adventures. So he's like, I'm gonna channel the inner TV star I was, and so I can't remember his name, but it's like Super Ninja Turtle Guy, whatever. And so he starts kicking ass and whatever, and starts taking it to the Foot Patrol, as well as all these human gangs that dress up with these mutant heads. And he starts taking them out. And eventually him, Raph, and Leo meet up in the streets, and they're all wanting to go get Donnie for sure this time to the real location. So they all start engaging these Foot Patrol members, and the three of them link up. And they're like, now we're on the right track. Now we're doing the right thing. And Leo's, yeah, because did you talk to Master Splinter? And so they're like, for fuck's sake, right? Like, let it go, Leo. So we see them taking on the Foot Patrol in the streets, but there's so many foot soldiers, and eventually we see Mikey especially get beat down by them and kind of subdued. So at the end of the issue, it looks like things are pretty grim. Michelangelo might also be captured, but I don't think this fight was going well for the Turtles at the end of the issue. But who knows what's going to happen if all three of them get captured. How are they going to get out of this pickle? Because we know Hale is an asshole, and he's got all these foot soldiers under his control. So not looking good for the Turtles at this point. Onwards to Transformers, and unfortunately there's just one lonely issue this month, issue 21 of the regular ongoing series, which is all we have for Transformers right now, which is kind of sad. It has I guess just a couple main things going on. It starts off with it's Blue Streak, Warpath, Alita 1 on Cybertron, Cliffjumper, the new guy they pieced together out of all those partial sparks. Shredhead is the guy. They're all there. So basically Blue Streak, Alita 1, Warpath, they're working on using Shockwave's tech to try and get them back to Earth by using a portal. But they realize they don't have enough energy. They're only going to be able to send one of them back. So they're kind of talking about that. Meanwhile, Cliffjumper and Shredhead are talking about Cliffjumper's friend Carly, the human. And Shredhead's like, oh, she looks fragile and small. And Cliffjumper's like, yeah, and I'm small too. But I realize I'm actually much bigger than my size and whatever. So I think Cliffjumper's kind of coming to some revelations after recent events have taken place. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Autobots are in the Ark. Wheeljack's trying to find out what's going on with Prime, because he's been having these weird episodes where he's getting super violent and even wanting to turn on his own people. Back the way he was during the war, the kind of this really aggressive attitude. And Wheeljack's kind of like, it seems almost like an infection or something. Like, I can't quite figure this out. And meanwhile, outside the Ark, Soundwave, Megatron, and Starscream are surveilling the area and looking at the Ark and like, we're going to take the Ark from the Autobots and we're going to do it tonight. So later on that night, the Decepticons do mount an attack. They're still working on Optimus Prime. Jazz sounds the alarm, like, we're under attack, whatever. So the Autobots start to mount this defense against the Decepticons, who have thrown Bruticus and Devastator at them as well. But as with the last time they were in a fight together, Bruticus and Devastator turn on each other and start fighting one another. While all this is going on, Thundercracker has been hiding away in the Ark, and he's trying to free Skywarp, his brother, who the Autobots have turned into part of Teletran 1, the computer system within the Ark. He's kind of mounted on the wall, part of his body and whatever. And so Thundercracker's up to something with Skywarp, and he wants to free his brother. So as the battle between the Autobots and Decepticons is going on, Optimus ends up going on one of his turns. It's like he's got that Megatron cannon on his arm, and he's about to blast his own guys before he's finally able to prevent himself from doing it. And he's like, Autobots, you must blow my arm off. Like, I need to cut this thing out of me and stop this madness. So that ends up happening. And while all this is taking place, the fight between Autobots and Decepticons is going on. Optimus trying to have his arm blown off is going on. Thundercracker ends up using Skywarp to basically teleport the Ark, the entire Ark, away from its location. So that happens, and all the Autobots and Decepticons are like, what the fuck just happened? Where'd the Ark go? So they're all confused by that, and they end up blowing Optimus's arm off afterwards, and he's injured. So the Autobots, though, are like surrounded by like Megatron, Soundwave, Starscream, Bruticus, Devastator, after Megatron rips a strip off the two of them for fighting each other. And they're like, oh god, we're screwed. But then suddenly Superion, the aerial bots, arrive, and he makes a big entrance and fends off the Decepticons as the Autobots rally and then attempt to make their escape. Now, as they do that, they're on their way out. Megatron finds Prime's arm, takes his cannon back, mounts it, and blasts Superion, and actually ends up hitting Slingshot, who is one of, I believe he's one of Superion's arms, and basically kills Slingshot with that blast. So the Autobots continue their retreat down a man, and a pretty important man, as now we don't have a full-fledged Superion. He's missing a limb, right? So that's kind of how the issue ends. It's kind of like an Empire Strikes Back kind of thing. It's like the good guys are in retreat. Somebody just died. Things aren't looking great for Optimus Prime and his Autobots. And Optimus also lost an arm. So, you know, there's Luke getting his hand cut off, right? It's not pretty. It's not pretty. Last up, G.I. Joe, and boy, this is exciting because we got a lot of them. It's great. We got issues 5, 6, 7, and 8 of like this kind of origins kind of line that they've had going on. They stopped putting it in my bin at the comic book store for some reason, so, and I kind of lost track of it, so I had to go back and get these last 4 issues, track them down after the fact, and they're fantastic. So in issue number 5, it picks up Duke and his team have been captured by Cobra after Cobra raided that facility where Duke's team was protecting some sort of Cybertronian tech. And so we see them being taken back to Cobra Base, and Destro is like interrogating Duke, saying, how did you know? Or no, it wasn't after the tech, it was after the G.I. Joe team were trying to get to Dr. Monev and the brainwave scanner, and were on the scene when Cobra was also going after it. And Destro was like, how did you know Dr. Monev and the brainwave scanner were going to be there? Like, how are you always one step ahead of us? And Duke wasn't talking, obviously. And so Destro gets one of his goons to start beating the shit out of Duke, whatever. And Duke starts laughing and stuff. And Destro's like, what's so funny right now? And Duke goes, clutch. Destro's like, what's a clutch? And then you remember, like, during that fracas, Rock and Roll died and Clutch went missing, presumed dead, but Clutch was actually, he went with Cobra and posed as a Viper and was kind of learning things, right? So Clutch is there, and he's in a HISS tank, and he raids the scene and starts causing all sorts of shit. So a big fight erupts, sort of thing, right? And so it's Duke, now Clutch, Stalker, CoverGirl, Baroness, and one more. Who the hell's the other one? I forget. But there's 6 of them, 6 Joes within this facility trying to escape. And eventually they do. They're able to board a helicopter, get the hell out of there. And as Baroness or whoever's flying them away, she goes, where's Duke? So he's still in the facility. He went after Cobra Commander, who had gone to see Dr. Monev and his brainwave scanner. And so basically what Cobra Commander's planning to do is, with this brainwave scanner, set off a brainwave bomb. He set up this tech to do this. So all the people in the immediate vicinity when this bomb goes off will be killed, and then all the people outside of it within a 5 mile radius will be brainwashed to become loyal minions of Cobra. So that's his plan. He boots Dr. Monev into the brainwave scanner to act as the human who's going to power this thing. So Duke goes after Cobra Commander, finds him, and sees him do this to Dr. Monev, and Duke has him at gunpoint, and he's like, who the hell are you? And that's how the first issue 5 ends. And so into issue 6, the helicopter chase is going on, but mainly the issue is about this fight between Duke and Cobra Commander. At first it's a bit of talking, and Cobra Commander tries to reel Duke in by saying, like, me and you were not so different, and he kind of compares the journey that they've both been through to kind of make this common similarity between the two. But obviously Duke doesn't fall for it, and so they end up fighting, and Cobra Commander lays out this plan about the brainwave bomb, and Duke's like, turn it off. And Cobra Commander's like, the only way to turn it off is to kill Dr. Monev. That's the only way to do it. And so Duke doesn't believe it, and so they get into this big fight. And eventually Duke fabricates this argument for against Cobra Commander, saying, I'm not letting you get away from here, so you're going to be blown up. And Cobra Commander's like, I'm not afraid to die for my ideals. And Duke's like, well, what if you die, the brainwave bomb goes off, you get all these minions for Cobra, you're not around to see your success. And Cobra Commander's like, huh. And then he shoots Dr. Monev to negate the brainwave scanner bomb. And Duke's like, what the fuck did you do that for? And Cobra Commander's like, I told you the only way to turn it off is to kill Dr. Monev. So it turns out Cobra Commander wasn't lying about that. So at that point, Clutch had convinced Baroness to turn the helicopter around and go back and get Duke. So they come back, and Duke's like, see ya, while Cobra Commander takes off on his own. And I forget, I think there's a bit of tomfoolery at the end of the issue. So, like, after Duke escapes, after Cobra Commander escapes, all the Cobra troops reconnoiter, and Destro's kind of laying into Cobra Commander. He's like, you didn't set off the brainwave bomb? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he's like, Destro, don't worry about it. That was only part of our plan. It doesn't matter. I also needed to do that brainwave scanner thing because it's the only way I could have got my hands on this. And he's holding an object in his hand. He doesn't say what it is, but it's obvious that it's a transformation cog. So he then says, Destro, you have so much to learn. And so then he shows Destro, like, this Megatron, this big giant robot who is Megatron that they have in their possession. And Cobra Commander's, there's so much you don't know, Destro. And he's like, I'm not going to let you know all of it too, because I don't want you to turn on me, sort of thing. So he starts introducing Destro into this world of Transformers that's going on, right? And meanwhile, as for the Joes, they're back at the pit, and Colonel Hawk is talking to Duke about their success with the mission and whatever, and Duke is like, yeah, we did okay. And he's like, our earlier conversation about I can't expect them all to behave the same way as me. I've got to embrace all their individual strengths. And so Duke sees that light now, and he's gonna go ahead with that kind of approach for his team. And we then see Clutch kind of take off to clear his head, and he takes a Jeep out, and he's out in the desert roads driving, and all of a sudden Jeep transforms. A giant transformer is standing there staring down at Clutch, being like, what the fuck is up, little human? And Clutch is like, gulp, and it's Hound. And then if you remember, I think last month there was a Energon Universe annual special, and there was a little adventure going on there between Clutch and Hound. So I was like, oh, that's a weird story, but it's because I hadn't read these ones yet. Now it's making more sense, right? So that's how that issue ends. So then on to number 7. Number 7 goes completely sideways from the storyline that we got up to this point. CoverGirl is cleaning out Hawk's office and comes across some files, and she's like, Colonel Hawk, what is Night Force? Like, I saw some files for Night Force. And Hawk is like, a project that never got off the ground. He's like, shred. So then that's just like the first page of the comic, and then we get to the meat of the story. So we see Beachhead, a secret operative, one of my favorite characters, infiltrating some sort of super nice home on the beach at night, and he's talking about what he does, how he needs to be successful on this mission because the GI Joe or the army brass are going to put him out to pasture and make him train people instead of being the operative out in the field. So he's like, I got to be successful on this mission. So the mission is there's this crazy old guy who has tons of money and he acquires old weapons, and so he's got something that the army wants. And so he explains that this old man is very adamant when it comes to security of his stuff. So he's like sitting there watching all the guards, timing things out. He's like, I've been here for 3 days. And so then he makes his move. He starts taking down guards, infiltrating the facility, but finds out there's way more guards on site than he was given intel on. And the old man has a couple of young women there, some guests, and that wasn't in the briefing. So things go pear-shaped on Beachhead. He's able to locate the tech though, and through or for the weapon or whatever, it's in this big crate. And through a bunch of awesome sequences, he's able to liberate this crate. But it looks like the jig is up for him. But suddenly a helicopter swoops in, a Joe helicopter, and lowers down a chain, and he hooks it to this crate, and they fly off. And in the end, it's Flint and Lady J approach him out of the helicopter and are like, how'd you like to join a little team? And Beachhead is like, nope, I work alone, whatever. I don't want to be put behind a desk. And they're like, oh, this team's a little different from that, and we play by our own rules. And as they say that, they open up the crate, and it's like the carcass, a badly beat up carcass of a Cobra Bat, the Battle Android Trooper robot. So Beachhead is like, and that's kind of where the issue ends off. So basically, it was a recruiting mission for Beachhead. And he's awesome, so why wouldn't you want him on your team? And then the last issue, issue number 8, it starts with Duke in the pit training his team, and like he said, embracing their strengths and getting them to work together with those strengths. So he's going through some training exercises, and then it shifts the scene to Cobra for a brief moment. Cobra and Destro are continuing to talk about the robots, the Transformers that Cobra Commander plans on utilizing to his advantage. And so he's showing Destro footage of what we talked about in the Transformers issue number 21. He's showing him footage of Bruticus and Devastator fighting each other and all the chaos that these Transformers create. And so obviously Cobra Commander's got some machinations that he's going to use these robots to his advantage. And then it also focuses next on Clutch, who is driving Hound back into the pit, and he's like, Hound, you got to be chill. You can't be transforming and showing off your robot form in front of any of these people. They're not ready for that. And of course, Duke is still traumatized from when Starscream splat to his friend after he ejected from the Sky Striker, right? How all of this began. So Hound plays by the rules, and eventually Clutch runs into Duke and Baroness, and Baroness is going on about, I need to get out of here. But she's still a war criminal, even though she's on their team. So Duke's like, we can't trust you to be out on your own. Like, you might do violence against other people. You might run away from us, you know. And she's like, just give me 48 hours. Like, please, for the love of God. So eventually they relent. And they're like, okay, Baroness, you have 48 hours. Go do what you got to do. But we're watching you. Any shenanigans, you're done. So she flies to Paris, but at the last minute, as she's boarding her private jet, CoverGirl comes strutting up and is like, hey, you didn't think you're going on your own, did you? So CoverGirl's going along, and Baroness is like, oh, you peasant. Is this your first time ever being on a private jet? And CoverGirl's like, I used to be a model. I used to be on a private jet all the time to every corner of this world. So as the girls kind of spend some time together, Baroness starts realizing there's more to CoverGirl than just an army grunt, and they start getting along, developing kind of a camaraderie. And then one day, CoverGirl gets the drop on Baroness as she's having lunch at this cafe on a Paris street, and they start talking and continuing to develop this relationship. And CoverGirl's like, what are you doing here anyways at this particular place? And she's like, see those two people over there? Those are my parents. They come here every year on this date to celebrate their anniversary because that's the place that they met. And CoverGirl's like, well, why don't you go talk to them and say hi? I'm sure they want to know their daughter's doing okay. And she's like, no, that's not quite the relationship we have. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose as all these falcons or raptors, birds of prey, descend on the scene and start picking away at people and stuff. And Baroness is like, I'll try and take care of these birds and get some people to safety, but you go take care of my parents because they can't see me. So she sends CoverGirl to go do that. And then at the end of the issue, Raptor, the Cobra operative, who is control all these birds and dresses like a raptor and stuff, drops in and says, hello, Baroness. Major Blood would like to have a word with you. And that's kind of how the issue ends. Pretty fucking sick stuff. Last up, issue 318 of the regular ongoing Joe series. Yeah, so if you remember, the Ninja Team invaded Springfield to try and get some secret intel behind the scenes on Cobra's operations there. So they infiltrated last issue. Now they're up to stuff. So Storm Shadow and Dawn are infiltrating the sewers to try and get to Dr. Mindbender's lab. And Jinx and Snake Eyes are pretending to be a woman and an old man, and they've gone to like the Cobra Springfield recreation center where the kids are having a performance of whatever, so they're playing their part like they're there having fun. And what's the other team up to? Yeah, so Dawn and Storm Shadow are in the sewers. Oh yeah, and then on Cobra Island, that's the other aspect of this story. We have the four-man team of Molto, Helix, Wetsuit, and Muskrat kind of scouting the Cobra Casino to see what's going on. So they're going to send in Helix and Molto to infiltrate the casino, while Muskrat and Wetsuit are going to provide support and reconnaissance from the cover at the side of the jungle. And so they end up doing this by one of their Cobra is brainwashing the guests as they leave the casino so they can be Cobra operatives when they're out. One of the operatives, the brainwave scanning doesn't necessarily take on her, and she ends up going off the rails, and she's gonna bite the bullet. So the Revenge commander sends one of his grunts to go after her and eliminate her and make sure nobody sees it. So that's when Helix and Molto get the drop on these two and pose as them to infiltrate the casino. And Wetsuit and Muskrat provide cover. So then I forget, this one was kind of all over the place. I kind of forget the exact events. Yeah, so then it warps back to Springfield. So Dawn and Storm Shadow enter Dr. Mindbender's lab, but a Crimson Guardsman and some sort of Viper, I think, enter, and they're like, shit, we gotta hide. So they're listening to these two talk, and they're talking about how Cobra Commander has been taken captive at Destro's castle in Scotland, but he's going to be able to escape, so it's not a big deal. So Storm Shadow and Dawn are like, oh, this is some serious intel. We need to get back to the pit, right? So the head honchos know and can act on it if they need to. So then, well, Muskrat and Wetsuit are doing reconnaissance outside the casino. They see Dr. Mindbender pull up, and he's got Serpentor in a capsule that he's bringing in with them. So they're like, oh, that's interesting, right? So there's all this intel the Joes are getting from these experiences. And then we see a quick shift of scene to Scotland. We see Cobra Commander get fed a meal, and after the guard leaves, he uses some stuff they've hidden in his glasses arms to be able to pick or blow the lock on his cell, and he ends up escaping. But Baroness and Destro are like monitoring him leaving, and they're like, just what we wanted you to do, Cobra Commander, because they've implanted some tech inside of him that they can control, so they can basically manipulate him with this tech inside of his head. So they had planned for Cobra Commander to be able to escape. And then back in Springfield, the Jinx and Snake Eyes, I think it is, the ones that are at the Springfield Community Center watching this kid's performance, they end up leaving and one of the kids walks them back, and this kid is the same age as the girl that Jinx is posing as, and they went to school together. And the kid's like, now that I'm older and I'm confident, I've always had a thing for you. And he's like, ah. And so Jinx is like, get back, get away from me. And then she blows her disguise during the process. And the kid's like, wait, you're not Nina. And that's the last like panel we see of him. So unsure of what Jinx is going to do to this guy, but I'm assuming she's going to kick his ass and take him captive, right? And then I think, yeah, and that's kind of how the issue ends. So there's lots of stuff going on. Two different teams in two different locations being split into different groups and doing different tasks. So that issue kind of had my mind fucking being pulled in every kind of single direction. But it's lots of good stuff. And these comics now, like, especially the G.I. Joe and the Transformers, like I really love the Turtle series too, but something about the G.I. Joe and the Transformers just has always grabbed me. And I love the comics when I was a kid, but now with the artists, how good they are, just looking at these drawings, especially of the Transformers and the robots and stuff, it is so neat to just look at these images, let alone read the stories that they're creating with these images, right? It's just so much fun. Every month I look forward to seeing, like, okay, what magical fucking displays are we going to see this month, right? So, and the good news is, now I'm posting this video so late and it took me so long to get through all these issues, I get to go back to the comic book store real soon and see what August has to offer. So stay tuned.
Meow.